can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, okay. Okay. Hello, my name is Emmanuelle Young, but I commonly go by my Al. I'm 18 years old and currently a UBC student for the first year with an intended major of sociology. I'm also an 1834 fellow as of this year.
Awesome. In terms of your current path, what are you currently doing? And this might look like university or work or any alternative paths you're going down.
Well, I just started UBC, so I'm going to start classes next week, and that's really what I mostly want to focus on. But I also am an 1834 fellow, as I mentioned, which looks like me participating with senators, learning about public policy, collaborating with other fellows who are youth. I think the age is 18 to 23-ish. Most fellows being on the older end. And actually next month I'll be flying out to Toronto for 4 days to meet them all and celebrate our graduation of the program. Okay, the fellows are all youth aged 18 to 23 who are interested in public policy work, but that really looks like a lot of different things. Some are med students, some are interested more in business, politics. It looks like a lot of things. So they're across Canada, and yeah, that's who we are.
And what motivated you to go down this path?
So I think that I haven't necessarily seeked out roles in government actively, but I learned that a lot of the issues that I cared for and my direction I wanted to head with was actually most aligning with the opportunities like British Columbia Youth Parliament that I'm a part of and the 1834 Fellowship, which are involved in that kind of realm. So I started seeing that my voice was really valued in those spaces, and I started meeting people who actually I connected with, who had like-minded issues that they were passionate about, and I just kept wanting to return to that space. And then this opportunity really stuck out to me just because there's so many multifaceted aspects. Like we get mentorship from, so it's an all-Black fellowship, just to be clear, I forgot to mention that. And so we get mentorship from Black mentors who are in the areas that we are interested in, which has really been amazing to connect with my mentor and get that the skill sets that he has to offer at this stage in my life. And then also we've been able to really challenge ourselves working with older people, me being the youngest fellow. Everyone's in at least university. Well, I did just start university, but they're at least a couple years into university. It's really challenged me to think. I've usually been in the space where I'm more on the qualified, like overqualified side, but now being where I have to like listen, take less of a active leadership role and more of like a quiet listener and seeing where I can collaborate. It's been a challenge, but it's been so healthy and so good to have these older people to like show me the ropes and like in the field that I'm interested in. So yeah.
Yeah. What about UBC? You said you were studying
Sociology.
Sociology.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that?
So I guess being one of few students of color at my high school on the island, I really felt like I stuck out, and I learned to kind of advocate for other students and myself that way. And then I also have a really deep passion for advocacy just because my brothers really had to navigate the healthcare system intensely in BC. So I've really seen my parents take advocacy roles, and I've learned to really care about the people in our society and learn how the systems can best engage with the people. And I thought sociology would be a great path to maybe further, to get me closer to my vision of maybe going to law school or like international relations or government or something like that.
Do you have any dreams? And these dreams could be ultra realistic, or they could just be completely like I had dreams of going to the NBA at one point.
Okay, how'd that go for you? Yeah. Yeah.
Are you somebody that does that?
Of course. I think I have more visions than dreams. Like I actually do see myself in certain spaces, and I don't feel like it's a fantasy. Like I feel like it's real, and if I work for it, I've started to see it already reward me. So the visions that I have are more like vague. I think for me a big thing is connecting with people. I've always just really found joy in connection, and not like your stereotypical connection where it's like, oh my gosh, like I know we both play soccer, like that's cool, but that only gets you so far, and it might be fun to play soccer, but do you connect with this person on an emotional level, on a spiritual level? Like, do you know this person's life story, their backstory? Do you understand why they are the way they are? And I love all that stuff. I love understanding why people work the way they are, why they navigate the way they are, and I think for me, I want to tell people stories. So similar to what you're doing, but maybe in a different format of just like, I think everyone just lives such a cool life. And if there was more opportunity for us to show that and share it, I really think that everyone would feel happier and just more seen and heard, which is really important to me. So definitely the biggest thing is just learning, exploring, connecting with people. I would love to travel, and I've traveled a bit in the past couple years for like the first time, which has been like eye-opening. I went to Denmark, the Netherlands, France, and Belgium. And in Denmark is really cool. So I was invited in Denmark to attend the Children's General Assembly. I guess it was actually just last year, yeah. And so I was one of the Canadian representatives and one of 80 children worldwide who were selected that year to go. And we talked and collaborated on world issues. And I got to meet youth from across the world. And that's when I realized, like, the world is so big, but at the same time, we have these things that ground us to each other. Like, there's so many common things that link us in ways we don't even notice, so many common experiences, and we're so focused on polarizing ourselves with politics, polarizing ourselves with these big world issues, instead of finding like those little moments and those little things that really connect us. And I feel like that's especially true for youth, since we're, especially with social media and internet, like we all really have access to each other. So meeting them and traveling and going inside the Denmark schools and playing soccer with the local kids, like that was really where it started to hit me. Like, I just want to see other people's lives. I just want to be a part of that. And I don't want to lose touch with those human experiences. Like, I think going into a world of government, you can often become scripted. You know, you don't sound genuine. You're trying to send a message. You're trying to gain attention, and it's very commercial. It's very fake. And I don't want to lose touch with like the real roots of why I entered that field, who I want to represent, what my goal is. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's perfect. And then, do you believe in goal setting?
Yes.
What are your short-term goals within the next year to 2 years here? If you have it.
Yes, okay. I guess find my people. I know that's like quite vague, but coming from a small high school, you don't really get a choice of who you're friends with, which is really great for one reason, is that you really get to know everyone. You're kind of forced to get to know different personalities, all of that. But I think naturally as humans, we want a community. We want people that we connect with. And so for me, I've already started to find it at UBC, even though it's just been a couple of days, but just finding the people that not are identical to you, but who have kind of the same goals, right? Who are looking in life for the same things. And so I'd say that's like my major one. That's why I decided to move to UBC, come on campus and live here, is because that community aspect is so important, so crucial, and so huge to me. I also really want to learn just how to slow down. I think a lot of young people we're scared of failure. We're taught that if we aren't constantly filling our time with extracurriculars, with a busy social life, with school, with work, we're not doing enough. And that really is so unrealistic, because we're all burning out. Most of us are burning out, or we're caught in this loop and this career ladder that we're trying to climb. And I don't want to get sucked into that. I want to find myself. I want to slow it down, take risks, be okay with stumbling, knowing that that's not going to mean I'm down forever. That just means that I've learned something, that I know that's not for me, and I'm going to grow from it, right? So that's something I really struggle with. Like, it's easy to say, but it's so much harder to put it into action. Like, I know all of us have dealt with like rejection and regret and all of those emotions, and they're extremely valid, but what we take away from that is so much more important than what actually happened. Because we can take that and we can grow, or we can take that and we can crumble, and I don't want to do that, and I don't want to put on a show for anybody anymore. Like, I want to be myself authentically, and I think that's how I will find myself. I'll find my people and all of that. And yeah, I don't know. Those are my two main goals. I think more career academic sense, I just want to explore. Yeah, I don't want to be sucked into one career for the next 30 years. And I know a lot of us feel pressured to pick our majors, think about, okay, graduate school. Is that something that am I going to do a diploma program? Am I going to go straight into the work field? You know, do I have connections, network, and all of these things? And I've been really focused on joining a bunch of these different opportunities and spreading myself out. But I think it's okay to also realize that sometimes the most important discoveries come from just like one-on-one interactions with somebody who's not the most qualified. Or, you know, you can learn a lot at your job at the cafe, sometimes more than other jobs. And the way that we prioritize certain roles, you know, we look down on certain people because of certain situations. I don't think that's fair, because I've met lots of people who are super qualified, and I don't feel like they understand emotional. Like, it's just, we all have something to bring. And so I just want to find what I have to bring. Yeah.
And what about in terms of long-term goals within the next 5 to 10 years? Are there any goals you want to hit on there?
5 to 10 years. Well, hopefully I will be done my undergrad, and going to graduate school is the goal, and then maybe doctorate. We don't know. We'll see how long that goes. I think for graduate school, I'm thinking either, like I mentioned, law school or international relations, not with the intention to become a lawyer necessarily, but just to have that background and that knowledge to get into other jobs and careers. I think journalism appeals to me. Yeah, so just, I think I have a direction. Do I have a certain like post that I'm trying to meet? No, but I have a direction that I want to go for that. I think other than that, in 5 to 10 years, goodness, I can't even think about tomorrow. 5 to 10 years. Hopefully, I will have met up with some of my friends that I mentioned, kind of worldwide, and seen where they've gone. I think traveling, seeing things from the locals' perspective is super respectful. It's super engaging. I don't really care for monuments or museums. I've kind of been that person who's like, okay, we're at this museum, take a picture, speed along. Like, I don't know. I think that's also why I mentioned I need to slow down and just take in the little moments. But that's another huge thing for me. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe I'll move again, live somewhere else. Maybe not too far, but yeah. And stay close with my family, of course.
And how do you see yourself achieving these goals that you've mentioned, both short and long term?
Yes. Okay. I think giving myself grace is the most important thing. I haven't given myself enough grace. I think that partially comes from the environment I've surrounded myself with. A lot of people see me as, okay, you're very responsible. You're very interested in being engaged. So they put me automatically in the role of leadership. And that's been good, but it not only takes away space from other people, but it puts me constantly in like a spotlight and lots of pressure, and I don't feel like I can fall when other people are expecting things from me, right? So part of the appeal of UBC was the fact that automatically it's really hard to stand out, because there's so many people from so many backgrounds with so many passions, and a lot of them have worked hard to be here. So being here kind of helps me with giving myself grace in that sense, because everyone's here for the first time, everyone's making mistakes. Oh yeah, okay, I would say how I plan on achieving my goals also is just not cornering myself in, like I kind of mentioned. So I think a lot of us get attached to labels. So we're like, it brings us safety and it brings us assurance that at least we have those things that we can kind of tell. So maybe, like for example, I really attached to my grades, you know, high achieving grades, that's who I am. And if I don't get that, people expect that from me. And all of a sudden, I'm not doing that, I don't have that label anymore. And that's intimidating. I think another thing for me is an athlete. Okay, if I'm not performing that day, if I'm not performing my best at my sport, all of a sudden, am I really an athlete? It's like that imposter syndrome that comes into play. So all those labels, you know, being just those labels limit us. Because I think that, like I mentioned, like you being a soccer player, that's great. I know you worked really hard for that, so I don't want to minimize that. But it's also like, I'm sure you have so much more to you than that. And if you, for some reason, say you picked up a basketball when you're younger, you mentioned the NBA, say you picked up a basketball and you focus on that sport more, and that's what you were around, I think you wouldn't be any less of who you are if were a basketball player than a soccer player. Maybe you would just, have stronger arms and I don't know. But ultimately that doesn't change who your soul is. That doesn't change, you might have different friends or whatever, but I don't think that changes who you are. So those labels we're used to getting attached to, they're really just giving us a false sense of security. And so I don't want to be cornered. I want to sometimes be loud. I want to sometimes be quiet. I want to sometimes, be creative or athletic. It doesn't matter. And I really limited me in high school because I used to think, okay, I'm good at writing. I can't ever do math or science. That's not for me. If I'm good at writing, and I'm good creatively at art, then how could I expect to also be good at writing or science? Math and science. And then all of a sudden, I started getting good grades in math. And that really was what? How can I just automatically assumed that I couldn't because I didn't have teachers that fostered that in me or whatever it was. And I challenged myself to take math courses that I didn't really need because I thought, okay, well, why don't I try that out? And that's what I think it's all about. It's who am I beyond the mask? Who am I at the soul? And what makes me come alive? How can I test those boundaries? How can I think, we have fear, and sometimes it's okay to play into our fear a little bit and see, okay, I feel uncomfortable in this situation, why, all of that. So I just want to, really be myself, away from the labels, search out opportunities. I think FOMO is a huge thing. So letting go of FOMO somehow is got to be a thing. I think you're always going to be missing out on something. You can't live 20 lives. You've got one life. And ultimately, you don't actually have too much control of it. So letting go of some of that fear of missing out, that fear of making the wrong choice, I think is going to be so crucial in the next few years, especially as my whole environment is changing.
Challenges and obstacles. What are some of your favorite parts you've experienced along your journey so far? And when I say your journey, I mean life in general.
My favorite parts of life in general that I've experienced?
Yeah, some of your highlighted moments that really stick out to you.
And even though I've only lived 18 years, that feels like, goodness, I have to rack my brain. I think one thing for me was homeschooling. So I think a lot of people, when I mention about homeschooling, they expect for me to be kind of on my own, have no social skills, live on a farm. And I definitely, that sounds like a great life, honestly, living on a farm. But for me, I started homeschooling because my brother had complicated medical issues. And so we decided it was best to start homeschooling. And I didn't go to public school until grade 6. And that was me deciding that I wanted to go to school, that I was ready to go to school. And so homeschooling growing up, I became so close with my siblings, and I was able to really find myself. So I would just spend the whole day drawing and writing. Or I'd spend the whole day playing soccer or basketball with my neighbors. I would just spend the time doing whatever I want. And I would sit down for an hour or two and focus on the real math or science skills I need to get done. But really in elementary school, you're not doing a lot of that anyways. And my mom was like, okay, she's writing all day. She's hitting that English, or she's playing sports. Okay, that's PE. You just kind of find a way to adapt to it. And my siblings and I would just go everywhere together. So my 3 brothers and me are so tight. And I think doing that, I realized how important it is to have a circle of people who understand you, and how important it is to actively search for that constantly. So that has definitely been a highlight of mine. And it was hard to step away from that and go to public school, although it was important because I definitely found myself in other ways. So homeschooling, number one thing for me, probably. Another thing is a camp I've gone to ever since I was 1 called Camp Goodtimes, and that's for kids with cancer and their families. And so I'm a sibling of a cancer survivor. So going to that camp since I was 1 has been the thing that has grounded me since the get-go. I mean, I don't even remember it at that time, obviously, but I think that our bodies carry memories. So the reason that I feel so connected to that land, those people, I think partially just comes from the fact that I was raised in that situation every summer. And the friendships I have there are some of my strongest friends. And that's why I'm excited to be on the mainland, because I can hopefully see them more. But going to that community, I think a lot of people, when I tell them that, they're like, oh, they try to avoid that topic, they step around it. They're like, you choose to go to a camp with other people who are going through tough situations. And I think the truth is we're all going through tough situations. But it's comforting being around people who see that and still experience life. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to explain to them. Like, there's kids walking around with mobility devices. There's kids who have a lot of anxiety or, are currently on treatment. They had to miss out on school. Whatever it is, there's these kids with all the range of where they're coming from. And we're still able to connect. We're still able to do things. And I think, like, these people, we have such an emotional connection, an emotional bond because we've been through similar experiences. And, like, living on that cusp of life and loss, you appreciate every single moment so much more. Like, the sun today, I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, to be alive when the sun is out, like, that's just great. And to have a less negative relationship with death, because it is inevitable, we can't avoid it, is really important. And these people have kind of seen me grow and develop. So they'll be like, oh, I remember you when you're 6 years old. I'm like, who are you? But they're like, you're like that sassy little girl with pigtails, and I remember you walking around here. And it's just cool to see people like see you grow and be a part of your story. I really think it's so important for all of us to have people who have seen us grow at different stages of our lives. So those people are so important to me. And in addition, I feel the most free there. So, like, I'd say I'm a pretty loud person. I'm a pretty blunt person. I'm a pretty outgoing person. But I'm also a very emotional and soft person. And I don't think that shows through as much as when I'm in camp. Like, these people, they know that I'm also, like, I'm kind of the life of the party there. Like, my cabin will all be trying to nap or whatever. I'll be like, okay, what are we doing now? Like, let's go do something. And I was like, Maya, like, I'm like throwing a football around the cabin. I'm hitting a chandelier. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think that's cool. But then at the end of the week, I'm sorry for saying this, guys. We all watched a movie that was known to be a bit more sappy and a lot more emotional. And we all just, like, had an emotional moment together. And I, like, read them letters about how I appreciate them and stuff. And I don't feel comfortable doing that normally with people. I don't feel comfortable showing that vulnerable emotional side because I'm scared of it taken away from the other side of me, right? I don't let those coexist. I think the masculine and feminine energy, it's hard for people to let that coexist sometimes. But the truth is, like, we all have traits that are different, and all of them make us who we are. So having that community to show me that has been really important. So yeah, I think those two have probably been, so far, my biggest highlights, possibly. Also, living in a complex was pretty fun. Playing soccer every day was great. I did like that. I mean, I had so many neighbors of kids just my age. And I only lived there for a couple of years, but it was kind of cool playing with kids and not really, I didn't know much about them, but just connecting over like a shared interest, running around. So yeah, I think there's so many experiences I could talk about. But yeah, those two and then that little one is probably, yeah, the ones I would mention.
And on the flip side is the challenges. So what have been some of the challenges you've faced so far throughout your journey?
Yeah, okay, let me think. It's hard because of my mindset. It's not that I'm a positive thinker, but I'd say that even the challenges, like I see them kind of coexisting with the wins. I don't think there's any experience that I would have taken away from my life because I think then I don't know if I would be where I am, who I am, right? So it's hard to like pick one, but I guess if you want that to be your answer. I guess I can talk about the tough moments, like the ones where it's like you kind of doubt yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, okay, so COVID was a huge thing for all of us. I know we really experienced that deeply, but for me, I actually had to step away from school longer than just like that little couple months period that it was closed. I went to online school for a whole extra year. So it's kind of back to homeschooling, except I couldn't really socialize. It was online high school, my grade 9 year, and all of my friends were back at school. And at first I was like, oh, this is so nice. Not waking up early, you just kind of log onto your computer, do a couple hours, then go sleep. Like I could do whatever I wanted. But then, you start really seeing all your friends kind of move on from you. Like I lost a lot of friends during that period just because it was hard to keep in touch. I mean, they went to high school, they had new friends, all that. And so that FOMO really hit me. And I was like, oh shoot, like everyone's moved on their lives and I felt stuck. But then I realized I learned a lot about myself. Like being alone with myself without that external peer environment, I really had to learn to like enjoy my own company. Like it was me and my siblings. And I think that was really important in a way because I reconnected with what's important to me. you know. And I really started getting interested in activism. I started volunteering at the youth clinic. It was online meetings at the time because they were still kind of in closure because of the health environment, which really helped me to kind of get into that realm. And then I also learned to kind of disconnect from FOMO, you know, and be okay that people move on from my life, and be okay that we had memories and they were great and they helped me get to where I am, but that it's okay that they move on, I move on, find new people. I mean, yeah, so then when I went back to school the following year, I was kind of still very hesitant. I had certain like regulations I had to follow to protect my brother and stuff, who's in critical health conditions. So I was a lot more careful than other people. So I really still couldn't hang out with them outside of school too much. I was masked up, all those kinds of things that really limited me. And of course, like people have perceptions of you when you're like, okay, constantly washing your hands, like wearing a mask. They're like, Mayo, like you're so, like, are you that scared of getting sick? All that stuff. And like people, every time I don't want to explain my whole life story to people, so it's just like, okay, I kind of take that, whatever, and not letting those things define me, affect me, really was big. But then also going to that high school, and I started really feeling like my identity as a person of color. So I'm Jamaican, Chinese, Polish, as well as other things. And being in that kind of space with a school that already is predominantly white, I mean, I didn't feel like much of a community. I didn't know who I was. And for a long time, I just kind of said I was mixed, and that was that. But then my identity really started getting challenged, started getting questioned by other people around me, and people wanted me to define myself. They're like, you can't be mixed. Like, you have to, like, we see you this or we see you that. Like, you got to start saying, and people started pushing labels onto me. And I was forced into a position where I had to choose who I was unless I wanted other people to define me. So I was like, it's my first year at high school, and that fall I decided to send out a survey to the school, seeing how people felt about representation and identity. And it covered things like ability, race, gender, sexuality. It covered everything. But the race section obviously really connected with me, and seeing a lot of other people kind of in the same position as me, not knowing who they were, not having a community, I decided to start a club for students of color at my school. Now, if you can imagine, I don't know, you being from the island, like, there weren't a lot of spaces like this, and people didn't really understand. They didn't, like my principal, my vice principal, maybe they just didn't, our school is, you know, has like a community, it's quite good, like acceptance of other individuals, like why do we need this space? But if we want to really look at it, it wasn't a negative thing. It wasn't a club that was specifically dealing with racism. It was a club looking at identity and connection, right? And so I made I was like trying to pitch this to people, and people were like, oh, like, what do I do if I show up? Like, what is this gonna look like? I had no idea. All I knew is I went back to spring break, and I couldn't sit still. I was like, this needs to become a thing. I don't know what it looks like. So I decided that I was gonna create a magazine to kind of show what it could look like. So I used my creative abilities, and I asked people to send me music recommendations. I asked people to send me artwork, life experiences. I asked people to send me all kinds of things, and to collect it into what we call a zine, which has kind of been used to like give community to people who don't have it. It's like a mini magazine. So I made this, and I was like, okay, I went to the office. I was like, I need 70 copies printed. And they're like, okay, this is great. We can do this. Now, people were like, why are you taking photos of me for this magazine? What is this? What do you mean it's just for BIPOC students? Like, why do we? And I was like, you guys gotta trust the vision. Like, I know this is gonna be good. You gotta trust me. So I released this, and all the magazines went, like, right away. I posted an online copy. I created an Instagram. This was built. The fall came around. It was my grade 11 year, my second year of high school that I'm in, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna start a club. And when people show up to the meetings, I don't know what I'm doing, but I figured out that I just got to be confident in who I am. And taking that negative experience of feeling alone, I was able to create this vibrant community of other students. I was able to explore my creative side through building this magazine. I got into activism, and I realized that every uncomfortable feeling you have, other people share. You're really egocentric if you think you have an experience that nobody else has. So kind of taking that direction, I think when I feel uncomfortable, I challenge myself why. When I have a setback, I challenge myself what can I make of it. And I change my perspective that way when I have hardships or experiences. like that.
You kind of touched on it there, but if you just want to briefly touch on it again, have you overcome these challenges that you did face?
I think, in a sense, yes, and in a sense, no. Because these topics for me, the topic of identity, the topic of FOMO, health issues in my family, all those things aren't something that I can just overcome through one experience, through two experiences. It's something I'm going to constantly question and challenge myself with. But now, going through these experiences and gaining these kinds of skills to know that I can and to know how to, I think I'm better equipped for next time I feel in kind of one of those spaces again. So in a way, I've overcome some of it, but not all of it, yeah.
And you just said, you feel better prepared for things that might happen in the future.
Yeah.
What is the biggest obstacle you anticipate that you might face in the near future, in the next year or two?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think I want to focus more on my social relationships with people. Like in high school, I didn't go to any parties. I really didn't hang out with people. And I think part of that was after COVID, I really couldn't. And then when I was able to, I realized it was a choice to hang out with people. And I was like, okay, well, I got this test coming up, or my room's really comfortable. I wasn't gonna actively go to my way to make these friendships. And so I kind of just had school friends by choice, or friends that I just texted and stuff. And I became that kind of friend that people would relay life to, which is really important to have some of those friends that you just kind of talk life through. And I really value those people. I don't want to undermine that. They're some of my closer relationships. But at the same time, you need people to experience life with, right? And those can both be different friends, or they can be the same friend. And so I want to experience life with other people at a similar stage than me. And I want to, focus on that and find out what that looks like. Because I think I can find that in clubs. You can find that in my residence. I can find that a lot of different places. But whatever it is, I want to just know that, okay, if I don't study for this test, for 4 hours, it's just a small test, I'll be fine to go out with my friends. And be okay with letting go of some of the labels that I hold myself to, and some of that pressure I put on myself, and focus on meeting people, because I think that's what being young is all about. Yeah.
Who are the most influential people in your life right now?
My family obviously is at that core, but that's why it's hard moving away in a sense, because it's I really did everything with my family. My brothers are my best friends, and I would actively choose to hang out with them over any of my friends anytime, any day. So to step away from my family has been really a point of reassessment, because I think I'm at a place where I want to expand my circle. Obviously, I have friends in different kind of areas, but I'd say they're more friends, that are in their support systems in their given area, which is totally fair. I'd say the 1834 fellowship that I'm a part of has been huge for a support system right now. I mean, last spring they flew me out to Ottawa to give a speech at Vote 16, which was to expand the voting age to 16 years old nationally, which I'm a huge supporter of. But kind of seeing people who invest in me has been really cool, because I think I usually have people who see, okay, what can you give? Okay, let me take that from you. You know what I mean? And it's for people to invest in me. It's been hard because I don't always accept it. I'm this is you sure me? Out of everyone, you could. But so definitely the 1834 fellowship, my family, some of my international friends. But I think a lot of it's going to come now from my residents and the people around me. I mean, now being at UBC already, I start to feel I went to an orientation in the spring called Destination UBC, which is for Black and Indigenous students. And going there, I had some friendships that we talked over the phone and stuff, kind of coming here. And I was expecting those people that where you connect with them, you talk to them in one environment, and then when they're met with so many other people, you're kind of irrelevant to them now, because they have this false sense of choice of people. But seeing that they came up to me and they're oh my gosh, it's so good to see you again, and they're inviting me places, and it's seeing that you're significant to someone, seeing that you're valued by these people when they have so much choice. That's the thing about UBC, is you really have so much choice of the people you want to surround yourself with. So when people want to connect with you, it's truly I don't, like, it feels special, you know, because, yeah, anyways, kind of, yeah, my support system's primarily my family. Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned quite a lot of people there, right?
Yeah.
How do they support you in your journey?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't like someone who affirms me constantly. I'm somebody who actually just shies away from excessive compliments because I feel like I want the real truth, and that seems like sometimes a facade. I want someone to tell me, like I had my friends recently, they tell me, let people in. They said, I know you're going to go to school, and you're going to try to be this person for this person, that person for this person, but let them in, let them see the real you. And having someone tell me that was like, okay, I admire when people tell you the truth, obviously respectfully, but I don't have time to waste with people who aren't honest with me, who aren't real about their perspective, because then you can decide how to respond. Okay, this person maybe said something you don't like. How does that make you feel? Instead of them just thinking it, instead of you just feeling it, because I feel like the energy is still there whether they communicate it or not. My family supports me because they've seen it all. They've seen me since I was little, and they've really experienced it all because I didn't go to school until grade 6. So knowing people who know me really supports me in the sense that they will fight for me through thick and thin. They will be like, okay, Emmanuelle, like, don't lose touch with this part of yourself. Like, and having those connections of just, I think where you can let your guard down and go to them. I go to them for advice. I go to them for, like, knowing they'll always be a call away. Yeah, I think that's really important to me.
Yeah. Moving into our next segment, looking back at the past year, what are you most proud of?
It's weird to look at a year because it's like I couldn't even have predicted what came to me this year. I would say most proud. I think my confidence has grown. That's something I really like. Appeals to me about other people too is when they're confident in who they are. So I've been trying to find that for myself, and I think that looks like a lot of different ways. I think true confidence comes with being humble. It comes with admitting when your mistakes, when you don't know something, because you're confident that that's still yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're just acting like you're constantly good at everything. I'm proud of myself for like trusting myself more. You know, a lot of the things I've done, like choose my university, choose the opportunities that I want to be a part of, travel on my own, like take a flight on my own. I was meeting people, but the point of that is I had to trust myself. I usually rely on my parents or my teachers or my principals to kind of set out, you know, what I am, what I'm not allowed to do. I'm someone who likes to follow rules typically because it grounds me. But you don't have rules with yourself. You decide what you want to do. And so to trust myself and be like, okay, Emmanuelle, you're going to make this decision, regardless of the outcome. You can't blame it on anyone else. This was your choice. And you're going to find yourself. It's going to be okay. It's like my relationship with myself, my confidence, my individuality has all grown as a result. And I've experienced that through Children's General Assembly, which I mentioned, the British Columbia Youth Parliament, 1834 Fellowship, UBC, like all these opportunities. The camp I go to, Camp Goodtimes, like although they're separate, distinct things, the skill sets, who I am, it's like continuous through that, and they all really connect. Like I don't see those as separate parts of my life. I see that as all one thing. I see that as more of a circle than like a line. And so yeah, I think that's probably been my biggest takeaway from the year.
And if you could do something or anything differently throughout the year, what would that be?
I think for me, I felt a bit cornered at the end of my high school. I felt a bit of like, okay, I've done everything. I had like not really any requirements left for me to do in high school. I took barely any courses. I was in a small town. I was just kind of like, okay, I was feeling stuck. So that's why I kind of started reaching out to other opportunities because I'm like, I need something to challenge myself, something to grow. But I wish that I knew what I'd be like now, because that would just bring me so much reassurance. Like, I think it's hard for us to know where we will be, hard to predict, but trusting ourselves once again that we'll get there, and that yes, the last year was really tough for me to still be in high school when I had no motivation at all. I mean, second term, I really couldn't complain because I had 2 classes and they were dance and PE helper. And my friends looked at me like, Maya, you have no motivation to go to school. I'm in like chemistry, calculus, physics. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not really the academic burnout. It's just, you know when you've outgrown a space. You know when that place is no longer serving you and you're no longer finding that connection. And in high school, you can't really decide, okay, I've outgrown this space, let me move on. No, you got to do you can, but like ultimately you're really doing that 12, 13 years, whatever it is. And so knowing that there's a world outside, I just wish I could tell past my L that there's like a world bigger, that it's okay, like just keep going, you're going to get there. So yeah, just changing my mindset, I would say.
Next segment is about the future. What are you most excited about for your future?
I'm guessing I'm most excited for like the perspective I'm gonna gain. I know that's really broad, but I think like going into first year university, I don't really know what like a lecture looks like. I don't really know what my life is gonna look like. I mean, I can't even really plan that ahead because I haven't found my flow. I haven't found my rhythm. So I guess I'm just excited to find that flow, to kind of find that new life for myself. What does that look like, you know? And so I'd say that's probably what I'm most looking forward to in a more general sense. If I was like to narrow it down to one like specific thing that I'm most looking forward to, I would say seeing the world, probably. Like whatever that looks like, I really do just want to see the world. I want to see where my family comes from. I think especially as I only have one grandparent left, and she's my Polish grandparent, and so I'd really love to see like that side of my family, or where like she grew up. I would love to go to China because I have family there and like see them. I would obviously love to go to Jamaica, especially in the winter months. But yeah, I really just want to see like where my family comes from, because I think like we can look at ourselves as an individual, or we can look at ourselves as a bigger picture. And I know like when I meet my family members I haven't met before and I see myself in them, I know that like I carry some of them in me. I mean, it comes even down to the facial features. Like, how can you hate your facial features when that's the same ones your family's held for generations, and they've been resilient and gotten to this point and they've like gifted it to you, you know? And it's the same thing with personality traits. I think it's like, how can I hate that I'm so loud and so energetic and all that when my dad is the exact same way, you know? And how can I hate that I'm so creative when my mom's like that? Like, I think gaining a bigger sense of connection from yourself, soul-wise, to the people that come before you, and that can look like a lot of things. That can mean meeting them, but I also think that means like seeing where they came from, where they raised. So yeah, I really want to travel the world.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, what are you most worried about for the future here? And for this question, let's go a little bit more short term.
Okay.
Let's go over the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay, 1 to 2 years. I think living on my own. I know that's like kind of general. Right now, it doesn't feel that much because like I'm in a dorm. Like I don't have a kitchen or whatever. I'm not somebody who likes to cook and stuff. So unless I get a roommate who like loves to cook, which I don't want to mooch off them, but if that happens, that'd be great. But I think just like living on my own, and I think in a family you can typically be like, okay, like you're good at like technology stuff, can you do that for me? Or like you're good at cooking, like you'll cook or I'll clean, whatever it is. Like you guys kind of find your roles. But being on your own, you have to sort of do it all. And so I'm a bit nervous in that sense. I'm also excited to kind of try it all, but like nervous in the sense that I kind of have to, do it all.
Yeah. And personal growth-wise, have you changed as a person in the last year?
No, I don't think so. But I think that I've become more myself, if that makes any sense. Like, I think like I'm slowly starting, especially like my adult self, I'm slowly starting to meet who that is. But every day, like even the parts of yourself where you're like, oh, why'd you do that? Like, why are you like that? And it's the same thing, like you can't break the pattern, you're just like that. I think like for me, kind of seeing those like just continue and embracing it, and I've just sort of learned to appreciate those different sides of me, and seeing like even in different environments, I'm kind of still the same person. Yeah, I just think I'm becoming more myself around other people who like bring that out in me. Yeah.
Yeah, and what would you say are some of your best qualities?
Best qualities? Where do I start? No, I'm kidding. No, how long do you have? No, I'm just okay. Best qualities. I'd say I think I'm pretty good at like making people feel comfortable and being their authentic self. Um, I think that like me just kind of being myself allows other people to also be themselves, and so I think that's like a major quality that I respect myself. Um, I think another quality of mine would be my drive. I'd say I'm extremely driven, even in times of hardship or whatever. Like I know my direction, and I keep working towards that. That being said, I'd say that I'm adaptable. Like if something changes, I'm not gonna be like, well, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. Like I gotta be a lawyer. I'll be like, oh, this actually piques my interest. Let me pivot here. So I think, yeah, both of those kind of tied into each other. If I had to go for one more, I would say my communicating skills, like my interpersonal skills, I think are pretty strong. I think that I can communicate what I think and how I feel quite effectively. Hopefully that's been demonstrated, but I think in a lot of different environments, I'm a very blunt person. I don't like to sugarcoat. So I think that I'm good at that kind of open communication. Yeah.
What are some personal qualities or skills you want to develop over the next years?
Yes. That risk taking. I think that, yeah, I just want to be like, okay, let me do something a bit outside of my realm. Spontaneous is also something I really want to work on, because I think that some of the best moments have come from randomness, something you didn't plan, and just letting go of that expectation. So yeah, spontaneousness, risk taking, and the last one probably being, I don't know why I said I had to pick three. I'm just gonna go with two. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Our next segment is about society. How do you think society views the path you've chosen, and does it fit into societal norms?
I think that society depends. Society's large, it's wide.
Whatever you see society.
Okay. Society I think that they view, like when I say I'm a lawyer, not that I am a lawyer, let me just be clear, but when I say that I aspire to be a lawyer, I think a lot of people automatically gain this sort of respect for me, even though it's something I've done nothing really in. They automatically are like, oh, you want to be a lawyer? Okay. But then I think that like when it comes to actually individual parts of what I'm doing and all of that kind of aspects, a lot of people view what I'm doing when I'm on the stage, like when I'm, say, speaking at an event or when I'm advocating for people, they view it almost like they can never do that. Like, what I'm doing is because I'm this special person or something that's good at that, and they can't do that. But what they don't know is that I don't know what I'm doing any of that. I'm going on that stage freaking sweating beforehand, like I'm stressed out. And the truth is, I never thought I would public speak in my life. Going to British Columbia Youth Parliament, that first time, I was just like going over my notes continuously. I was like, okay, when do I say, like, you know, stand up, all that stuff. But then afterwards, you get that rush. You get that sense of like, oh, I did something that was uncomfortable, and I can do it. And so I think that, like, society views my external self as someone very capable, you know, someone they want to use as a leader maybe. But I think as more of like somebody who like is actually inside of me, I think in a bit of a way, I'm a danger to society because I obstruct it. Being your authentic self automatically breaks so many expectations set up by society. So I think in that sense, they don't view it as negatively, but they view it cautiously. So even if they respect what I'm doing, they're hesitant to support it or whatever it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just touched a little bit on my next question.
Okay.
Very easily right there. Do you feel supported or judged by society for choices you've made and the path you're going on, and does it bother you at all?
Absolutely. I think that it really affects me daily, especially when it's a negative response. When I have somebody that I respect or somebody in an authority position tell me that they don't really agree with my choices, my decisions, whatever it is, it's hard to trust myself in that sense. It's hard to be like, yeah, I think I'm right in this, or I think this is right for me, when other people are saying otherwise. So yeah, I definitely think it affects me so much. I think whether it's my peers, whoever it is. But enjoying my own company, enjoying what I'm doing, so much more important than any of that. I mean, not in like a selfish way of just serve yourself, but the truth is that by not breaking society, but breaking those societal expectations, I've met my best connections, I've done my best work, I believe. And so I think society is framed in a way to keep in a fear response, because if it's easier to keep people in a line than to let them be themselves, but I think we need to be ourselves. And that's where I think the beauty of society comes from.
And now for our last segment.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone considering taking a similar, if not same path as you?
Yes. I would say invest in yourself. I don't regret, but I wish that I was a bit more careful of protecting my peace, because in high school especially, I was really focused on advocating for the students of color at my school. And in my district, actually, I went to several other schools to promote BIPOC clubs and speak. But it came back at me in the sense that I was polarized from my peers. They viewed me as kind of this person that's just making a space for students of color, like what am I doing? So I polarized myself from my peers, and teachers started to view me differently. They started to give me added responsibility that I noticed no other students did. They started joking around, like I was taking a test and they left the room and they're like, oh, you're just gonna leave that student there? They're like, oh, Maelle's not gonna cheat, Maelle's gonna be fine, or like whatever. They would tell me stuff that like I probably shouldn't have as a student, and they started to put me in positions where they felt like they could, and I had a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, and I was actually tokenized a little bit on behalf of students of color, and I was trying to push their voices up, and it was a lot of just me like pushing, and there was definitely support. A lot of people, I'm not gonna say it was just me, there was a lot of people in my school district, a lot of students who rallied behind me, who really were main voices, but it was difficult to kind of, I kept wanting to make this space at the expense of anything else. And in my last year, it really made me feel overwhelmed with that. But at the same time, I'm so glad I made the BIPOC space. So it's like, it's a bit of back and forth of just like, I don't know, like I don't regret my choices, but I reflect on it just with somebody, like just advice to somebody to just always protect your peace, you know? Because people are gonna fight against you, people are gonna say things, but you need to protect your space, you need to protect your sanctuary, and you need to just let yourself grow. I would also say, if you're feeling stuck right now, if you're feeling like, where's my path, no one's getting me, and you're still kind of like in high school or whatever, I would say I felt like my small town at one point was the whole world. Like I felt like, okay, these people's opinions of me, it was like one social group at high school, like that really matters. But the world is so big, and you will find a place where you flourish and grow, and maybe that's not where you are, maybe it is, and to just be okay with like knowing that you will find your place, yeah.
And what's the best advice you've received so far along your journey?
I think so. Recently, I'm going to focus on recently because it's kind of been in my head a lot, but I was at camp, so Camp Goodtimes, and I remember it was the last day and I was a bit emotional, not going to lie, because it's always hard to leave like a place where you feel seen. And I felt like I was expressing earlier that week, like one of the first couple of days, to just like a group of people, that it was really hard for me to exit camp because I didn't felt seen or appreciated, or like I could be myself or find my people anywhere else as much as I did at camp. And it was hard to feel so seen and then step away into a world where I didn't feel seen. And so I was expressing that, and not in like a serious way, but just kind of like saying it in a casual conversation. And the last day, a leader came up to me who I didn't know at all at the start of the week. And he came up to me at the end, and he just said to me, Maelle, don't stop trying to build that place. I know you said it's hard, it's whatever, but don't stop spreading that light, trying to find that place, trying to build that, because you can. And I know it sounds so simple, but I think sometimes we get so stuck, like it's not here, it won't ever be. But I think that mentality I'm trying to bring and be like, if I actively look for it, if I actively try to create it, it'll come, and I just have to trust that it will. Okay, hi Maelle, in 2 years. This is Maelle at 18.